Hello, hello! Welcome to the second episode of the Veggies Abroad Vegan Travel Podcast with the chief veggie pusher, myself, Rebecca Gady Sawicki. Some of you may already be familiar with Veggies Abroad, but for those of you who aren't, we're a full-service vegan travel company that offers custom planning services, small group trips, and even a helpful blog chock full of just about everything a vegan or veg-curious traveler could possibly need to plan an adventure. And I've recently added this podcast to the mix. With this podcast, I hope to bring you guys the inside scoop of what vegan-friendly, and eco-friendly businesses are doing in the wide world of travel. Plus, I'll give you the full download of what's going on behind the scenes at Veggies Abroad. Since our last episode, we've kicked off Veganuary over here in chilly Detroit. I am working on trying to boost media coverage in our local market in order to reach more people who are curious about a plant-filled diet. The 2023 Veganuary campaign achieved remarkable results. Over 700,000 people participated from all 50 states and nearly every country in the world. Now, here's the more mind-blowing thing. If 1 million people participate, listen to these stats. The environmental and animal impacts are huge. Over 1.6 million gallons of water could be saved. Over 103,000 tons of carbon, which is equivalent to 1.2 million flights from London to Paris, could be saved. And 3.4 million animals could be saved. Now, can you imagine that for a year? Even if people just reduce their impact, it can be massive. Every little bit helps. So, my goal for January is to spread the plant-based gospel and encourage more people to give it a go. I'll keep you guys posted. Hopefully, I can weasel my way onto at least one morning show. Wish me luck. All right, so moving on. I am super excited about today's episode, and I think you will be too. I'm talking with Nora Livingstone, one of the superstars behind Animal Experience International. I met Nora earlier this year, and she's my go-to for animal-related questions when developing travel itineraries. I used to think being able to tell an ethical activity from a non-ethical one was straightforward. Just avoid riding, swimming, holding type activities, right? Right. Well, partially right, but places have gotten savvy with marketing, and there's a whole lot of gray area. When I was planning our Thailand tour, I was stressed about vetting sanctuaries. I spent hours reading about places and reaching out to contacts. I think Google was starting to think that I was interested in starting my own sanctuary. Luckily, all of my itineraries are partnered with the certified B Corp Intrepid Travel. They were one of the first to ban tour operators that allow riding, and then went on to ban other activities like bathing. Between them and my massive Google research, we settled on a place that was absolutely fabulous, and the group loved it. But wouldn't it be nice to be able to interact with animals and not worry if you're spending money on something that's unethical? That's where Nora comes in. Nora Livingstone is the co-founder of Animal Experience International, an award-winning B Corp that helps people travel and ethically volunteer with animals worldwide. Through her work as a volunteer coordinator at a wildlife center in Canada, Nora came to understand the great need for animal-loving people to help animals around the world. Since co-founding Animal Experience International in 2011, she has visited more than 45 countries to help make safe, ethical, and authentic international volunteering possible. She believes locally led community conservation and animal welfare programs will not only help animals, they will help humanity. So now, without further ado, let's get over to my interview with Nora. You're going to love it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Nora. It's lovely to see you. It's been a while since we chatted. I was telling the guys before you came on that we met earlier this year, and you've become my go-to for everything animal related. I actually feel kind of badly sometimes that I slide into your inbox so often with questions, so I hope you don't mind.
Oh, Rebecca, it's so nice to talk to you again. And slide in all the time. It makes me feel important. It makes me feel seen and heard. I love the sound of my own voice. And yeah, anytime I can hear myself feel like an expert, I love it. So always, you're always
Awesome.
welcome.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm happy to do that. Anything to help you out, I will do. So, your organization, Animal Experience International, is amazing. When I first learned about you guys, I was like, "Oh my god, where have you been all my life?" Like everybody's life. We've needed you like on a crazy like franchise scale. We need one in every state, every country. What you're doing is really, really fabulous. And so I can't even imagine like starting this. Like starting my own business was difficult enough. But then like the animal part of it is like a whole 'nother level, but amazing. Can you share a little bit about everything that Animal Experience International does?
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to, especially after that segue into it. Yeah, so Animal Experience International started in 2011, and it started from this very real, what we thought and now know was a need. My business partner, Dr. Heather Reed, is a wildlife veterinarian that still works as a wildlife vet in Toronto at one of the busiest wildlife centers in Canada. I was the volunteer coordinator for a while. And before that, I was really lucky and privileged to be able to travel and volunteer at a number of different animal and non animal places. And I was able to see how the volunteer coordinator and the person that sets expectations and rules and the guardrails really affects a trip and experience and everything in between. Um, and she sort of always has vet students and vet nursing and tech students contact her and say they want to do wildlife medicine, they want to learn more about animals, doing rehab and everything in between, and how do they make sure an experience is safe but also ethical and also beneficially authentically beneficially helping animals, and also not taking away from the community at all. So we had this idea that we thought, well, I mean, no one else is doing it, so it might be hard, but if it's not going to be us, then who else will do it? Why not it be us? And so we started with this very naive idea that everyone would tell the truth on the internet and everyone would be kind to us.
I'm so sorry to laugh.
Ah, it was a different world, but also it was naive. And yeah, we realized that this is why AEI needed to exist because people aren't always truthful on the internet and
Mhm.
they aren't always nice and they don't always know the questions to ask and they don't always know what they don't know. And so we over the years have stayed true to having authentically beneficial programs, safe programs, as well as now consent based programs. And it's not that we weren't consenting before, it's that we just didn't use that language until we realized it was a really accessible way to tell people that the experiences they were having were in fact good for the for the community and the animals. And so I realize I have not explained what we do. Um, so that's great.
You're getting there. You're getting there.
I'm just burying the lead. But we help people from all backgrounds volunteer on animal welfare and conservation programs. And so sometimes we do have vet nursing students that go to Guatemala to volunteer at Wildlife Rehabilitation Center down there. We sometimes have photography aficionados that go to Mongolia and take pictures and help with the wild horse conservation there. I just got back from Australia, where I was volunteering at a wildlife center, and we've been partnered with them for 10 years. And it was normally we vet all the programs before we go. Pun not intended, but I'll also use it. Um, and then we do like to go back often and see how our volunteers have made their mark on the center, how we're helping, how things are growing and progressing. So it's a bit shameful that it took 10 years to get back to Australia, but but life happens and everything in between.
A
So was
pandemic
happy.
happened.
No.
My God.
That just took like 3 years away from everything, so it's really been
Yeah.
7 years.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, everything in between. It's been super interesting and fun and empowering to be able to travel around the world, see places that help animals, and then send other people there. Because if it was just me volunteering by myself at these centers, sure, I would absolutely help. Once a month or once a month, once a year, for a week here and there. But being able to send hundreds of volunteers a year to these centers and with donations on top of it means we are having a much larger impact with the welfare of animals, with the conservation of animals, with everything in between. As well as helping travelers. I think that all boats kind of rise. When you travel, you are more empathetic, you are more empowered, you understand the world a bit more, and you understand animals a bit more, which of course I think is so important. You get to learn about animals that you see every day and animals that you just learn exist, which is very
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah, that is really a neat opportunity. I always think travel can be such a good tool for promoting good. It can
Mhm.
really, help build bridges, make people aware of the world around them if they open themselves up to it. I think if more people had the opportunity to travel, this world would be a different place for sure. So, when you first started the organization, was it always the intention of helping travelers, or was it more of helping vet students or maybe students in general to do this?
Yeah, it was really important to me when we started that it wouldn't just be students and it wouldn't just be people with a medical background because I don't have one. And
Hmm.
selfishly, I want to help little baby Noras that also don't have them. Um, and I've always loved animals and I never knew what I wanted to do when I grew up. And I always knew I was bad at math and organic chemistry is impossible.
Oh my
And
God, yes.
so, right? I didn't want people to see that and go, geez, I would love to volunteer in Thailand at an elephant center, but yeah, organic chem. Am I right? And so I wanted to make it accessible for everyone. And also with the understanding that everywhere we go, we have vets and nurses, research staff, all these really big professionals, pardon me, are already working at these centers. There are these locally run centers that understand the local problems and solutions. They are there every day of the year and they'll be there when we leave. So I wanted to make sure that people knew, yes, being a vet is absolutely helpful. Being a vet nurse or a vet tech, a vet assistant, also helpful. But there's also so many translatable positions that we can help animals with things that we do around the house. If you can sweep up your kitchen, you can sweep up an echidna enclosure. If you can cut a banana for your smoothie, you can cut up a banana for a orphaned howler monkey, which is like sad and then so cute and then
Yeah.
also so so wonderful that you can help. And we always wanted to make sure that everyone felt empowered. Everyone knew that we're all on the same team. We're all helping animals and it's not on different levels of helping. All of us are equally important in this massive sort of machine that is conservation and animal welfare and everything that goes into that.
Wow, that's awesome. So take me back to when you very first started and your very first trip. What was it? Where did you guys go? What did it look like? How did you pull it off?
So we have two types of programs with AEI. We do group trips and we also do solo trips. So when we first started, we contacted the groups that I had already been to before and said, "Hey, I've been here. I love y'all. You are amazing. Would you like to get free volunteers and donations from a brand new agency in Canada?" And all of them went, Sure.
Suspiciously.
Yeah. We're not gonna say no, but what on earth are you talking about?
Yeah.
And so we contacted these groups and we said, "We'll set everything up. It's not gonna cost you anything. It will cost you your time when you are hosting a volunteer and you're training them and you're picking them up from the airport, but we'll make sure that we pay you for your time. We pay you for petrol, electricity, Wi-Fi, everything that goes into it." And so our first couple trips were places that I had been to as early as 2006 and as late as 2008. And our first volunteers went out in 2012. So it was us saying, I know these groups, I feel really good about it. Would you
Mhm.
like to go solo to somewhere that I've been before? I'm sort of like a travel agent, but I have like
Mhm.
walked all these places. And then the first trip that Heather and I did to scope out a center was to Costa Rica to check out some, of course, sea turtle conservation programs. And that was like truly, it felt like we were living in a dreamland that people trusted us enough to say, yes, come see what we do with sea turtles. And they respected certainly Heather enough to say, would you like to work with sea turtles?
Mhm.
And then I was just in the back, delighted to be like cleaning up and catching a sea turtle and looking at the moon when we're walking, doing walks on the beach looking for leatherback sea turtles. Everything just seemed so significant and so interesting, and that really made it even more real that as delighted and awestruck as I am doing these programs, so will our volunteers.
Mhm.
We walk these beaches and jungles and sometimes urban landscapes beforehand so we can know, like, truly, like, have empathy because we've walked there. We know what it feels like for our volunteers. We know when things feel a bit like maybe a bit uneasy, so we can make sure that volunteers have rides from the airport because it's always stressful. But then we can also I just got an email yesterday from one of our volunteers who's in Thailand, and I recommended she go to this bat cave where
Mhm.
every day thousands and thousands, if not millions, of bats
Wow.
emerge from their cave at dusk, and they just like fly into the wilderness to go eat things, obviously. And I told her, like, you should definitely go, even if you're like frightened of bats. Like, you're so far away, you don't interact with them. You just you sit at the side of a lake and you just watch it. It's beautiful. And she wasn't really sure and she decided to go, and I got this email back saying, like, it was like I was living in like planet Earth. Like I was a documentarian trying to express how amazing the natural world is and
Mhm.
how all these bats can live together and also do, I'm not sure if it's called murmurations, but like they can fly in all these different patterns and not hit each other, and it's incredible. And so yeah, from our first trip, I knew that that would be something that would be so special for AEI, that we would be sharing all these different points with the volunteers, not just the amazing uh, volunteering activities, but also just living in sort of situ with these biologists and vets and animal care workers and everything in between.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's like you bring in National Geographic to real life. All of these things that you see on TV and you wonder about or only read about in magazines, you actually get to witness with your own two eyes. Like, how amazing is that?
Yeah. It's it's so incredible to know that it can be for everyone. I think oftentimes we grow up and we're watching David Attenborough on Planet Earth, we're reading
Mhm.
National Geographic, and we're like, wow, these people are, and they are so esteemed because they are so amazing and they've put so many hours into their education and their work and networking and everything in between. And not that volunteering fast tracks that, because you can't just go to the Serengeti and open up a lion and do open heart surgery if you've never done that
I hope
before.
not.
Yeah, I also do not I hope that doesn't happen. But yeah, like that's not realistic, but being
Right.
able to be the research assistant is. And all these very small, like I said, translatable and teachable things, you can walk on the Mongolian steppe and see Pallas cats that most people on Earth don't get to see. And you can swim in the kelp forests of South Africa and see pajama sharks who
Wow.
are the villains of my octopus teacher, but are still amazing. We love a villain.
Oh my gosh. And love our octopus teacher.
Yeah, we love all of them.
So when you first started in those first couple trips, were you worried that people were going to be interested in doing this? Or did you think, oh my God, there's a possibility that this might just bomb?
I well, I'm worried now. Um,
No, don't worry. You're amazing. You're amazing.
no, I always I just assumed that people were like me.
Mhm.
People given the opportunity, not everyone, travel isn't for everyone. Animals weirdly aren't for everyone. Cleaning up like orangutan poo isn't the best day of everyone's life. Um but I did know that there were people like me out there. And I
Mhm.
did know that there would be people who would see this for what it was, a massive privilege and like a huge opportunity. Because
Yeah.
how can you know if a center is ethical? How can you know that you're doing good? How can you know you're not taking from the local community unless you're having like a very open and honest discussion? And that's what we have. And so when clients contact us and say, this is a dream and I really want this, how can I make sure it's ethical? I can have the real conversation with them and I can say, we know it's ethical for all these reasons. And I thought that was just so special that we would look the ugliness that travel can exist in the face, and we can talk about exploitation, and we can talk about how these will be experiences that you love, that you can the memories you can pass down to your children or your grandpets or whoever you talk to about travel, and you won't ever feel icky about it because it's not well, I didn't know better at the time. It was I farmed out the idea of ethics and consent and and authenticity to someone else who really spoke to it. And so I know always that these things were good and continue to be good.
You mentioned this a couple of times, consent based tourism, which I think is incredibly important. And if anybody's listening has seen the documentary, The Last Tourist, it's touched on a little bit in there with some of the volunteerism. I think I'm getting the word correctly, which I hadn't really thought too much before. But the idea of consent is really important. Can you talk a little bit more about that and what that means and how you guys make sure it's a part of your trips?
Yeah. Oh, I love talking about it because, well, for two reasons. So deeply important. And also, I made it up. So I love I love people asking me about something that I should be an expert in. But yeah, during the pandemic, we yeah, couldn't travel, couldn't get other people to travel. So I was doing a lot of teaching in universities and coming in as like guest lecturers and colleges as well, and trying to talk about in an hour or 90 minutes the massive idea of ethics in volunteerism, in tourism, working with animals. What does that look like? And there's so much nuance and there's so much gray area and intersections that you could talk about, that one day I kind of just said like consent is important, because it is. And my
Mhm.
brain kind of like cramped And I couldn't not see through that lens anymore, that this was such an accessible way to talk about tourism and volunteering and everything in between. And so I like to think about it as, with AEI, as like a triangle, that all interactions have to be consent based. And
Mhm.
so in consent, you have free informed, it's a full body yes. It's free informed consent. You know what you're saying yes to, and you can leave at any time. Consent can always be taken away. And
Mhm.
it's such a deeply important thing to talk about in our bodies and the bodies of people around us. And it also is important in the communities as an organism, as a body, and of course as the animals, the sentient beings that we are working with. Once we acknowledge that animals are sentient beings, non-human animals, we have to then discuss consent and what that looks like. And so it seemed like a really easy but really dense way to talk about things, especially in tourism, because sometimes you don't know why you're not consenting, but you know
Mhm.
that you're not. Sometimes your body is saying, I don't really want this, and you don't have to intellectualize it. You don't have to know the deep ethics theory of what's going on. You don't have to know perhaps about like some childhood trauma. You just have to know it is a no for you and you get to
Mhm.
walk away because it is your body, it is your experience, it is your trip in your life. And so in consent based tourism, it's the same idea that you look at the community as a consenting partner. Do they want you there? Are you listening to what they want? And if they tell you to leave or tell you to change what you're doing, do you listen to that? And I think when decolonizing travel, when thinking about travel in an anti racist way, when thinking about the deep roots of travel, which are not proud roots to be thinking of, I think
Mhm.
we do have to look more at these communities that we go into are our hosts. And we are staying in their homes, we're staying in their communities. And especially during the pandemic, it was deeply important to say, there are other travel companies that are saying you can travel. There's
Mhm.
certainly world governments that are saying you can travel, but we talked to our local community partners. We talked with our homestay moms and our volunteer coordinators and our vets and biologists in the field and said, "Hey, could you use our help? We know that
Mhm.
everyone is short staffed." And they would say yes, but also no. We don't have the
Mhm.
vaccine yet. We have aunties that are staying with us. We have grandmas that can't be exposed. We have chimpanzees and orangutans that can't be exposed. So,
Mhm.
yeah, we do need your help, but like not in the way that we normally have it. We need virtual volunteers right now. We need donation help and things like that. And so it was, more and increasingly, it's always been important, but it's been increasingly more apparent how important consent is because it was never given before. It
Mm.
was just a given that we could go travel somewhere.
Yeah.
And the same with animals, right? Like we often wouldn't ask for consent before riding a horse, riding an elephant, having what is a ridiculous thing, having a tiger balancing on a ball in a circus.
Right.
Like, did we ask for consent or was
Right,
that
right.
through pain and torture and manipulation?
Yeah.
And and yeah, like it's very clear that it's pain and torture and manipulation now.
Mhm.
But, before when we didn't have the language, do people think that animals were just for us? Were dancing bears for us to be entertained? Was it part of culture? Perhaps it was, but looking through the lens of everyone consenting over their own body, it now is no longer acceptable to have
Mhm.
this as part of tourism. It is no longer acceptable to, perhaps controversially, tell a woman what to do with her body because we
Correct.
consent over what happens to us.
Right.
And so the last part of the important bit for consent-based tourism is your own body. When you are going to a center, is it a full yes? If a center tells you, um, You can bottle feed a baby lion. Sounds amazing. You might not know why it's unethical, but when you're doing it, do you have that ick? Is your body saying, "Ah, I don't know why, but I don't really know about it." You
Mhm.
on your trip can always say no. You can
Mhm.
always ask questions. You can always ask for clarification. And if someone is telling you you're not allowed to ask questions, you can leave and say, this is not how anything ethical would run. When people are obsessed with ethics and justice and equity like I am, I don't shut up about it. And so
Mhm.
when people want to know questions, I or want to know answers, I want to tell them more. And so I think when we think about consent, we have to we don't have to do anything, but I think we really should be looking at every interaction we have and looking at the last tourist and looking at different types of volunteering that they touch upon. Volunteering with kids, I think, is a really great example. Can a
Mhm.
child consent? Is it free informed consent? Do they know what they're consenting to? Do parents know what they're consenting to when their kids go away to international schools? Some of them may know, but I would argue not to infantilize any parent or anything like that. I think there's a lot of manipulation that's happening, but I don't think it is true consent. And since it's not, I don't know how we we can justify it.
I think that's so important. As you were talking about that, I was thinking so many companies need to have a crash course in that and rethink everything that we're doing, and governments as well. I was in Venice this fall, and it was awful. And I
Yeah.
was talking to locals there, and I felt terrible. At one point, I thought, "I should just leave. I shouldn't be here," because
Mm,
the locals don't want people there. The locals have lost their city pretty much. There was a huge campaign about hitting a certain threshold of population, and once they hit that threshold, that meant that they probably were going to lose, the Venetian culture. That
mm,
meant that this was just pretty much becoming a Disney World, and at that point when I was there, they had hit that. And I thought, why I and also the government had come out at that time too, because there was a possibility of them kind of, I think, recalling, like, or putting into, I'm trying to think the term for it. They'd called attention to their, like, UNESCO
mm,
status and saying, like, okay, if we're in trouble, we know we need to do something. We need to kind of get involved as kind of a global organization. And because tourism is driving so many dollars and tourism feeds so many really terrible things, the local government there was like, no, 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 actually, everything is just perfectly fine here in Venice. Like, we're not kicking people out of their homes. Like, more tourists aren't here on a daily basis than locals. Like, there aren't more convenience stores and actual grocery stores. Like, there aren't problems here. It's totally fine. Like, look away, go somewhere else. And as a travel company myself and working with individuals, it becomes more and more important to have those really uncomfortable conversations of, like, I know you've seen these photos of, like, these amazing experiences and you think that this is something you need to do, but actually you shouldn't go there. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't hold this baby animal, kind of thing, and why. And so now my other goal is to, like, get you in front of every travel company in the world. Just by the way, in your free time, Nora.
Well, why not? I've already told you I love the sound of my own voice, so let's do it.
So we've danced around this a little bit, but if someone wants to volunteer for one of your programs or go on one of your trips, what should they expect? Like, this isn't like a go lay on the beach kind of activity. This is actual work, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's deeply important to have balance in life.
Hmm.
And you're not volunteering for 24 hours a day. And if you are volunteering with sea turtles, you just happen to be on a beach. So
True.
you could just lay on one. Um,
with the sea turtle.
Beside the turtle. But yeah, the programs are all quite different because yeah, all animals are different, all countries are different. What the
Mhm.
help that we need in each place is quite diverse. When I was just in Australia, we take one volunteer a month, and it is a month-long program. It is wildlife rehabilitation, so it's husbandry, cleaning, feeding, enrichment, um lots of cleaning, but you're cleaning cygnets enclosures and emus and echidnas and bilbies and all these other random beautiful animals. Many of them have pouches. It's Australia. And then in your time off, you stay in a cabin that's about 3-minute walk from the center, and it's just in the middle of a national park. And so in your time off, you can do whatever you want. I traveled around Perth a little bit and saw a bunch of amazing things, but I would wake up every morning and sit on the front porch and drink coffee and watch wild kangaroos hop past the cabin.
That's
Like it,
awesome.
yeah, like you're working hard. You are working on a team that is there for the welfare of animals, but you're also a human and an animal, and so your welfare is also important. Um, when thinking about working with sea turtles in Costa Rica, our program is in water research. And so we put out nets to catch the turtles safely, maybe, hopefully, obviously, at this point, after hearing me talk. But we catch the sea turtles, we tag them, we get their biometrics, we get all the information possible, and then we release them again. And then everything else on the program is related to the conservation of turtles. And so there is a mangrove nursery in which we plant mangroves all up and down the coast. We help clean up marine debris, which is the fanciest way of saying picking up garbage ever.
That
Um,
is very fancy way to
that's
say
marine debris, my goodness. Oh, it's a tire. Okay.
it.
Uh, but it's you're in when you're in Costa Rica, you're in the Osa Peninsula, which has 5% of the world's biodiversity.
Wow.
So when you are working with the sea turtles, you're seeing scarlet macaws fly overhead. You're seeing sloths also overhead. Dolphins are in the Gulf splashing around. It is paradise. You're on a beach. It just looks a little bit different than maybe like a typical vacation.
Mhm.
But it is an all-inclusive trip as well. We set up airport pickup to drop off. All your accommodation and food is provided in the experience that we have, because we know that when people go away, not only do you want to focus on the animals that you're working with. If you're
Mhm.
in Thailand volunteering with elephants, you want to, only think about the elephants. But also, like, these are the inherent stress points of travel. Where do I eat? What can I
Yeah.
eat? Is it going to be possible with what I want to eat, what I'm interested in? How do I get from the airport? Who speaks this language? So we set everything up so the experience is very much you and the animals. You cleaning up, measuring, what else would you do? Taking pictures, doing behavior monitoring, things like that, everything in between. Because as silly as it sounds for someone who doesn't truly love animals, like, it is not only like an incredible dream, but it's also like a privilege to
Mhm.
clean up the poo of an elephant that's in sanctuary after her whole life has been slavery of
Mhm.
humans.
Right.
And to be able to give that to these animals, to be able to go to Nepal and work with dogs who from no fault of their own don't have a family and just need you to do some enrichment, take them for walks, give them like good belly scratches while they're waiting for their treatment. So cute. This is what an honor our lives can be if it can be in service to these little wubbies. And
Yeah.
it's yeah, we have so many different programs because so many people have different wants and needs and interests, but it is all community based, and it is or local community based, and it is all yeah focused on how can we help these animals that primarily are in a rough spot because of humans.
That's amazing. And you'd mentioned food. So is it any trouble getting vegan options on any of your trips?
Never, ever, ever. When you are working with other animal people, oftentimes you are working with lots of vegetarians and vegans.
Yay!
Yay! It makes it easy. So there's no one that looks you in the face and goes, "What? How could
Right.
you eat without cheese?" and all the other
Oh,
nonsense.
God, that
Uh,
question.
Ugh, right? Oftentimes, it's people that go, "Oh, I'm so thankful that you're vegan because it's so much easier." Because
Mhm.
you're staying in a house that people want to be good hosts and want to serve you food that you want to eat. And so when you're vegan and they're vegan, they're like, "Oh, wonderful. We'll eat like the elephants that
Mm.
obviously get enough protein because they are mahoosive.
Right.
It's fine." I'll never
Yeah,
ask
there's no
you that
protein
question.
deficiency.
Yeah. No, we're good. Um, yeah, I've been so lucky before AEI and then after to travel to, at this point, more than 50 countries, and I've never had a problem on AEI trips saying,
That's
"This is what I
amazing.
eat, this is what I don't eat." Um, Sometimes people see it as like a really fun challenge because they do, because I want to be a good host and I want to say
Yeah.
thank you for traveling all around the world. It's
Right.
very far to come. And
Right.
now, yeah, I want to see like how can I make this local food really good? How can I like figure out how to really please you as a guest? And and yeah, most of the time the people that we're working with work so much with animals. They have the same idea of I work with them, how could I eat them? Seems
Yeah.
a bit counterintuitive.
Right. That's an amazing situation to be in because oftentimes there's a whole nother side to travel when you're at a hotel or something and you're like, I'm vegan. And they're like, oh, okay. Fish?
Yeah.
No. Cheese? No. I'm like, how many things are we gonna go through on this list? Like, no, none of that. Oh, okay. So what do you eat? And it's always a really uncomfortable thing.
Yeah.
So that's got to be amazing to have someone on the other side be like, "Oh, okay, we get it. Like we understand what that means, and now we can just omit that. We can figure it out."
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
it
what a
feels so
relief.
good.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because you don't wanna travel halfway around the world and you're like, "Oh, great, here's some more lettuce." I love lettuce.
Oh, a chickpea salad. My gosh, how
Again, for
amazing.
the thousandth time. Everybody loves chickpeas, right? Oh my gosh. So when you're vetting these sanctuaries, is it really difficult? Do you find that there are more places doing really good things or more places operating kind of in the gray area? Is that process really difficult for you guys?
It was difficult when we first started because we didn't really know the questions to ask, and we didn't know that, frankly, there was so much animal exploitation in this realm.
Yeah.
Um, Now that was 2011, and things have changed a lot in a lot of really good ways. We now do about 2 years of research before we even consider going to a placement.
Wow.
And for many different reasons, there's a lot of things to look into, a lot of questions to ask. And we realize that that takes a long time for our centers to get back to us and communication and things like that.
Mhm.
But also, when we tell centers that are not in it for the long run, if they're not sustainable, if they're not ethical, if we tell them it takes 2 years before you even get to see us, many of them just walk away. And it's
Mhm.
like the easiest litmus test to say, okay, well, that one probably not great.
Yeah.
Um, and now it is a lot of just asking questions without any, not even guilt, but just saying, "Do you let people ride elephants?" And
Mhm.
just waiting to hear what the actual answer is rather than trying to justify it or trying to understand where they're coming from or, like riding elephants is wrong and we won't work
Right.
with a group like that. It's the same with working with kids. We won't ever work with children for many different reasons. But when working at an animal center, there is no reason to be working alongside children. There shouldn't be
Right.
child labor,
Right.
and we shouldn't be working with a group that is focusing on perhaps too many different things. If you're working with kids, you should be working with professional educators that have a vetted background that they can and should be working with children. And that takes a long time and it should. And that is taking focus from perhaps the animal work we're doing. So
Mhm.
we, um, we very much go into it asking hard-ish questions and really looking for those answers. I was part of the Gap Year Association in America. Last year, I was part of a committee that wrote fair trade um, certification, really, rules on how to have fair trade service learning.
Mhm.
And I was the angel of doom
I highly
every
doubt
single
that.
meeting.
Oh, no.
Everyone was like, "This is so great. This is how we make sure that when working, because there are programs that work with children that are great. So
Sure.
this is how we make sure that they are great. This is how we make sure that we're supporting volunteers in these ways with GAP students, everything in between." And then I would show up and be like, "Let's talk about animal exploitation."
Mm.
Because I've now been thinking about it for more than 10 years.
Right.
And people would say, "Okay, well, like, we can if there is no taxi, in some places someone will take like a donkey." And I would like rear up and be like, "Hey, let's talk about that donkey." And while it's not hard to talk about it anymore, it is just detail oriented. It is looking at all of the different beings that will be connected to these trips and saying, "Yeah, tell me about the donkey. Tell me about how often it works, how often it
Mhm.
goes to the vet, what its name is." Because there's
Mhm.
many donkeys that are very happy to be service animals and walk with their people, and there's many that don't.
Mhm.
We work with a donkey sanctuary in Kenya, and so I get to see lots of sides of donkey guardianship, and so yeah, it's not hard work anymore if you know the correct questions to ask and if you're willing to ask them and if you are willing to hear like not a great answer
Yeah.
and knowing that I guess yeah, there can be a lot of cognitive dissonance when working with places. People get very focused on I, I would say like sometimes the best people get focused on one animal and forget the other ones. And then I would say maybe not the worst people, but people that have like more nuance and more story behind what they're doing often will exploit animals for reasons that are understandable but not justifiable. They're hungry, they need education, they have addictions, they have families. I absolutely understand it. I absolutely understand that I've never been hungry enough that I've needed
Mhm.
to exploit an animal to make money. But again, that's an understanding rather than a justification. And I think
Mhm.
that we can work on the side of justice, which means that everyone who's working with animals in an authentic way or authentic beneficial way, a just way, a high animal welfare way, gets paid well,
Mhm.
then more people will want to work that way. I don't think that people want to hurt animals. They just themselves want to hurt less.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. Have there been situations that you've vetted a partner, thought, "Oh my gosh, this is golden. We've dotted all of our I's, crossed our T's," and then it turned out to be something else?
Yeah, not recently. When we first started, there were some placements that sounded really great and did so much work,
Mm.
and then went down there and realized, like riding elephants is a great example. We didn't ask the
Yeah,
question, do people ever ride these elephants? Because it said elephant sanctuary and it said all these
sure.
other things. And so, like, surely you don't ride them. And this center, it was really interesting because people don't ride them most weeks of the year. And then 1 week a year, they're on loan from a group, and 1 week a year, the group takes them back, and
Mm.
these elephants are, like, brought through the country. I'm trying to be a bit vague on where this is.
Sure, no, of
Um
course.
But yeah, they're transported through the country, which is inherently stressful, and
Sure.
then they are ridden to raise money for this group, and it it's really murky because yeah, this group is doing good in the community, and they are providing shoes for kids, but sort of at what cost, you know?
Right.
And And we wanted to make sure that we were supporting, just as all of our volunteers would always feel good about the program they went on, the experience they had. There's never going to be a time that they'll look back and go like, "Ooh, that was actually not great." We also didn't want to have any asterisks on our program. We didn't want to say that it's okay. The only time these animals are abused is for this situation. We wanted to say, maybe that's not the messaging we want. In the same way, like everyone gets paid an ethical wage, unless we didn't want to have that. We wanted to be able to stand firmly next to all of our programs. Um, so yeah, so it hasn't happened in a long time because we're able to yeah, just simply like ask the questions and
Mm.
say this is what we're willing to tolerate and this is what we're not willing to tolerate. And so that has made it very easy for people to know if it's going to be a successful partnership through research and development or if it's not going to be.
Right. So if people aren't, just like forget about the research and worrying about it and traveling with you and you handle all of that and they decide to go and do, animal experiences, or maybe they're visiting somewhere and there's an opportunity for an animal experience. Are there tips that you have to help travelers, kind of go through the murky waters of, is this ethical? Is this not ethical?
Yeah, yeah, I would say, well, for sure, look through the lens of consent, um, because think it just clears up so much
Yeah.
if you think about it with consent. Is an animal tethered? Is it on a leash? Is it drugged so you can take a picture? Does that look
Mhm.
like consent? It doesn't. And then it also feels gross. There's a lot of people that swim with dolphins because it's magical and dolphins are so cool and everything else. But then you look at how dolphins are treated to get them to these dolphinariums, tanks, you know, horrible places. And you look at how they're treated when they're there, and it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel magical. It's not a cute picture of an animal who, through evolution and evolution alone, looks like it's smiling,
Mhm.
not because it actually is. It's a picture that you look at and you go, ugh, that's not great. And so yeah, I think that like looking at everything through consent would take away a lot of that. And I think don't be afraid to ask questions. If you are on the fence about something, because of course you don't know what you don't know, you can always ask the center and ask about their ethics. Ask about, I think a really important question is to ask about euthanasia.
Mm.
because we have started a duty of care with these animals, and it's really hard and it's really sad, but there are some cases that animals have to go to heaven
Mhm.
because they're suffering too much. They are in too much pain. We can not just look at them and know, we can through science understand that there's so much cortisol going through their body. It is not it's not good for them to be where they are. And there's some places that I visited that have an absolutely no euthanasia policy, and it's horrific. It's
It is.
horrific for the animals, and it's horrific for the volunteers to walk through and see just a life that is not even well lived, but a life that is just suffering. And so I think asking that hard question, what is your euthanasia policy? I think not only will help you understand what welfare looks like for animals, but then also will let you know what the standard of care is for those animals. And it's hard to talk about. We don't want to do it. We want to we want every animal to get back to the wild, to get back to a home and a couch if it is a domestic animal, but it's not always the case. And I think that there is a reality to these magical experiences, and it's the privilege that we get to see reality and we get to see what real life looks like, which is
Yeah.
sometimes devastating, but to be on the side that gives care before that devastation, I think is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think sticking with like a governing body that certifies sanctuaries, like the Global Federation of Animal Sanctuaries, is a good way to kind of vet out some of that murkiness? Or does that then maybe exclude other ones that are also doing good things?
Yeah. Oh man, certifications are so difficult because there are some amazing certifying bodies.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, there's some incredible, incredible groups out there. Um, but in some places, these certifications are very expensive. And then in some places, these certifications are expensive and don't mean anything. And so there is, yeah, yeah, it's difficult. I would say if you were going to look at certifications, because it could be an important route to go down. I think it would also be important to look at how they get the certifications,
Hmm.
because if you do some very easy research, you can see if it is just monetary. Every year you just spend some money, you get a stamp. It's not going to be great. If there are people that actually go, if there are audits that happen, again, they'll do audits on euthanasia and they'll do audits on release of animals, as well as looking at sizes of enclosures and things like that. Um, that could be really good. And then also you can always again ask the center. I see you don't have a certification. Why is that? And some
Hmm.
centers will just say, "Yeah, they're so expensive. We'd love to, but we don't have that yet."
Right. They're maybe using that money for animal care or other things. Or, when fundraising happens, you have to allocate what goes to what. And so
Yeah,
something gets the short end of the stick. And I've talked to places that have said, like, we do meet this criteria, but we can't justify the expense of it. It's not
yeah.
bringing in tourists, it's not bringing in visitors.
Mhm.
So why do it if it doesn't matter? So that's like I always feel like it's a slippery slope with that and kind of a difficult thing.
Absolutely. And I think people like donors sometimes it's a great idea, but sometimes donors get really upset with admin costs when they want to donate.
Sure.
And yeah, for sure, we want to have all of our money go to the cashews that a woolly tailed possum will eat, but maybe they're just woolly possums and they're brush
They've
tailed. Anyway, I made up a
got
species.
a cute tail, whatever it is.
Their tail is just amazing. Yeah, we want to make sure that all of our hard-earned money goes exactly to that animal, but without admin, we don't have fundraisers, and we don't have people on Instagram showing you pictures, and we don't have people that are doing the certification, and we don't have people that are researching the importance of better enclosures, um, better medicines for animals when they're in surgery, different types of enrichment and things like that. I think admin costs are something to be critical about, but not something to completely throw away. There's such an important, amazing group of people that do admin at wildlife centers who are actual heroes because they're not doing the fun little touching animals, looking at them, getting their hands dirty. They're in offices and they're just as important as the vets who are doing a lot of medicine, and the techs and our volunteers who are doing a lot of cleaning. We're all part of this, and these people need to be paid as much as everyone else gets paid.
Yeah, absolutely. My career actually previous to this was in fundraising. And so I do remember very clearly some of those conversations, but you can't get rid of those admin costs. You have to have them. They're integral to keep an organization running. If you want the mission to happen, you need people to do it. And
Yeah.
there's no other way around it. And no one should ever be expecting someone to work for free because we all have
Yeah.
expenses. We all need to live our lives. We all need to eat and all of these things. It's interesting conversation to have for sure with
Hmm.
donors.
I can imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you think that the travel industry is shifting or has shifted over the years with its perception of animal based tourism and shifted maybe in a positive way or in a negative way?
I think it's really species specific. I think
Mhm.
people love elephants, and elephant care has changed, thankfully, so much since 2011. It is extremely heartening that we are caring so much about elephants. Um, like full stop, not even a but.
Mhm.
It's actually unimaginable that in really a short period of time people's ideas of how to interact with animals have changed so much. There's still quite a lot of riding of elephants in different countries, um, but those countries that are allowing riding is getting smaller and smaller. And when countries ban it, tourists don't seem to be trying to go around the system, or saying, well, it's only going to be me riding an elephant. It's just me. It's not everyone else. People are really respecting it and saying, yeah, okay, fair enough. That is not something that we should have done. But I would say other animals, perhaps not so charismatic, are not faring well. Um, and it's not so much tourism as much, well, it is. It's tourism and the pet trade. We are seeing the pet trade and people wanting animals as, or birds specifically, as pets, and big cats skyrocketing. And I just read a horrifying article about AI bots on Instagram. So you see a cute, we'll say African gray parrot on Instagram, and someone under it writes, "I want that." Because like they do, it's cute. You want it. That's sure, whatever. But there are bots now that are scrubbing comments and looking at everything, and they're seeing if there is a market for these animals.
Oh my
So,
God.
yeah.
Wow.
And
That's
so
crazy.
it's crazy and it's so alarming, and it's directly showing animal traffickers that they still have a job. Because while someone just wrote I want that and didn't mean it, there is probably someone that does mean it. If
Right.
200 people say I want an African gray parrot, probably one person will actually have it. And so the animal traffickers and poachers, who again are doing it because they are hungry, they are addicted, they want to go to school, they want to have better opportunities. They're doing it because capitalism and because the systems we live in, people need and want to get paid because they need and want to pay for things. But the technology is now saying, like, this is where things are going. More people want this. More people want to have servals as pets. They want to have orangutans. They want to have possums and things like that. And so I think that is what is alarming for people in the animal welfare and tourism realm, because AI is looking at all of this data, and huge amounts of data, and it is showing people are looking to exploit still, and they're looking to exploit perhaps ways that are harder for us in tourism to stop. We can say, we don't ride elephants, don't swim with dolphins. We can very much look at numbers of people going to aquariums and things like that going down, but we can't really, with the illegal pet trade, it's illegal. No one's saying how many animals they have and where those animals are from. And so this is sort of what we're seeing being a problem. And then that translates to tourism, because people will have a monkey at home, a sugar glider, something that is cute and fuzzy, and a mammal. And so they'll go to somewhere like Thailand and they'll see a slow loris on the beach and they're like, ah, that's very similar to an animal my friend has. It must be domesticated. I'll take a picture with it and I'll give some money to have a capuchin monkey on my head or something else. So there are wonderful things that are happening in animal welfare. There's wonderful things that we're talking about finally, and things are changing. But there's also some really alarming things going on in ways that people don't even know that they're part of. You would never know that you're part of like AI metadata for poaching because under an animal you said, "Oh, I'll take two, please." Ha ha ha.
Right, right. I just, oh my gosh. I don't even know what to say to all that. I'm just sad. Just sad.
I told
I
you I'm
just
the angel of doom.
You're my favorite angel of doom then. People, oh, I just want to shake them sometimes.
Mhm.
As we wrap up, as I know I got to let you get back to your day because we could chat for, I think, hours about so many of these things. As like you're chatting, I was like, oh, I want to ask her about this and this and this. But I know, time, work, all of those things.
Ugh,
You have
boo.
some, I know, boo. You have some awesome things coming up, including a June trip to Guatemala. Are there other trips, or do you want to expand on that for anybody listening who might be interested in going?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, like I said, we have two types of trips with AEI. We do solo adventures that people can sign up any week of the year. So you could go to Guatemala literally next week if you're interested. Honestly, probably this week. We could figure it out if you wanted to go tomorrow. Uh,
Nora's not doing anything right now. She'd be happy to find you a flight and, somewhere to
yeah,
stay.
happy to do that. Happy to help you find some sunshine. But yeah, so we have lots of solo adventures. Most of the programs run all year, which is great because a lot of our programs are in the tropics and the neotropics, and so you can all year be warm. But yeah, in June we are going to Guatemala. It's going to be just a small group trip led by me. So if you haven't heard enough of me, this is a great opportunity to hear
Oh
even
my
more.
gosh, that would be amazing. Who doesn't want to travel with you?
Oh, Rebecca, come on this trip. Just be my hype man every
I
morning.
know, I know. Actually, my wheels are turning.
So this is going to be actually our third, I think, expedition. We call them expeditions because they're a little bit different from the solo trips. They are this one is 9 days, and it is working at a wildlife rehab center. So it's toucans, scarlet macaws, baby howler monkeys,
Oh,
um, adult howler monkeys. Um, there were some squirrels last time I was there, some raptors, what is another amazing animal? Anteaters, um, tons of incredible work. And again, you don't have to have any experience, especially if I'm there with you, because I have now been working with this group since 2006. And so I'm your very talkative guide that explains how to cut up a mango for a toucan and how it has to be cut and what that looks like. It's very amazing. And then we are going to spend an overnight in Tikal National Park, which is one of the largest ongoing archaeological digs and contemporary spots for the Mayan people. It is where the Mayan calendar was found when 2012, I think, actually did end the world a little bit in the way that we thought the world was going to be. Um, but it's in the Mayan Biosphere Reserve, which is a huge, beautiful, like actually huge, spanning countries forest, and where a lot of the animals that we work with are released. And so not only do you get to see ancient Mayan temples, you get to also see contemporarily how people are using them to worship. You also get to see animals that are out of their enclosures and out of their medical treatments. So yeah, again, like toucanets and monkeys and coatis and other amazing little friends. So it's a beautiful experience, I think, to go and really be in Guatemala and really see like walking paths that people have walked for thousands of years while being in service to animals that are so evolutionarily weird. Like a toucan, what are you doing? Why?
Yeah.
What is happening, friend? Um, so again, it's airport pickup to drop off. We live right at the center, and all your meals are included. And I think this is our third time leading a trip, and this will be my sixth time there. And we've always had vegans on our trips.
That's
So they are,
amazing. I love
yeah,
it.
it's so cool. Every year there's just like a little bit more vegans that come on the trip and say, come on, let's go.
They heard about feeding the mango to the toucan. We're like, I can't miss this. I have to find
Right?
out. Right? Like how can my life is not complete until I know how to cut up a mango for a toucan.
Yeah, it really isn't. You think that you've done it all, and you're like, wait a minute, how do they get the mango in their giant beak? Well, I am not going to tell you. You'll have to come
I
down.
know I'm going to be thinking about this the rest of the day. This is a very important thing to leave people on. And also, if people want to learn more about your trips, about you, about the work you're doing, how do they find you?
Yeah, it's just animalexperienceinternational.com. We chose the world's longest name, but it's very easily Googleable. Because if you forget what it is, you're like, I don't know. I want to do an experience internationally with animals, and we'll come right up.
Awesome. The powers of the Googleverse. Thank you so much again, my dear friend, for joining me today. This has been an amazing conversation. I feel like there's even more things that we can chat about in the future. And
Absolutely.
also, happy early birthday to you. I hope you have
Oh,
a wonderful one in the next couple of days and stay in touch.
yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it's always lovely talking with you, and I'm sure we will talk more. And happy unbirthday.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I don't need another birthday. 2 birthdays in a year, that's too many birthdays. I don't even acknowledge the one birthday that I do have. Oh my gosh, but thank you so much.
No, no, thank you.